You feel it before you see it, a strange stillness in the air, the kind that makes every sound sharper, every breath linger longer in the chest. The nights have grown darker, the days shorter, and yet it is not the darkness that stirs unease within you. It is the bite of the first frost, creeping silently into the soil, glistening faintly over fields that only weeks ago swayed with golden grain. Step outside in your mind, and the scene is laid before you. The village path you walk upon crackles faintly beneath your boots. Every blade of grass sparkles, as though painted by an invisible hand of ice. The world has become quiet, almost reverent, as though holding its breath for what is to come. You are no longer merely an observer. You are there, in that medieval village, centuries ago, with nothing but the tools of your hands and the strength of your will to face the long winter ahead. This is the moment when every family senses the test that lies before them. The harvest is already done. The barns, if fortune has been kind, stand filled with sacks of barley and wheat. The smell of dried herbs still lingers where they were tied in bundles and hung from wooden beams. But no matter how full the storehouse may seem, no matter how carefully the salted meat hangs in the smokehouse, there is always the same question, whispered in every household. Will it be enough? Because the frost does not come alone. It is only the herald. Behind it trails the long procession of cold days, empty fields, and silent forests. Soon the rivers will stiffen into stillness, their surfaces glazed like polished stone. Soon the earth will harden, refusing the plow, the very ground turning against the farmer. And so the first frost is more than weather. It is a messenger, a warning that the rhythm of life must change. Imagine standing in the middle of that village as the sun rises pale and weak over the horizon. The air is sharp enough to sting your nose. Smoke curls lazily from a few chimneys, carrying with it the faint comfort of wood smoke, and the reminder that warmth must be constantly fought for, never assumed. You notice how people walk faster now, scarves of wool drawn close, heads lowered as if to hide from the wind. But not all fear the frost. For some, there is a kind of beauty in it. Children trace shapes with their fingers upon frozen panes. Hunters mark the clear prints of deer and boar in the whitened soil, knowing the trails will soon lead them deeper into the forest. And in the stillness of that morning, there is also a quiet strength, because this is not the first winter these people have faced, nor will it be the last. The frost comes every year, and every year, life finds a way to bend but not break. You feel the tension in the air, though. Beneath the beauty lies the weight of memory. Stories, whispered by grandparents, of winters so cruel that wolves prowled at the very edge of villages. Winters where bread had to be stretched so thin that a family survived on crusts and thin broth. Every soul knows that winter can be a gentle guest or a merciless master, and no one can predict which form it will take. Step closer into a cottage now. The door creaks open, heavy and wooden, and the warmth of the hearth wraps around you like a cloak. You see a family gathered, faces red from the cold, their voices low but steady. They speak of the frost with a mixture of respect and caution, as though naming it too boldly might invite its fury. On the table lies a small loaf, a wedge of cheese, a jug of ale. Simple things, yet each one carries the weight of survival. And as you sit quietly in that room, watching the firelight dance upon rough-hewn beams, you realize that this moment, the first frost, is not just about nature. It is about the mind. It is about preparing the heart for endurance, for patience, for a season where hope must burn brighter than the fire in the hearth. Outside, The village grows stiller with every passing hour. Chickens are ushered into coops. Sheep are driven into pens, their wool thick and shaggy against the cold. The very rhythm of the day has changed. Tasks that once stretched lazily into evening are now hurried, for no one wishes to be caught in the biting air after the sun dips below the horizon. The frost teaches urgency, discipline, and the necessity of foresight. And you, caught within this moment, cannot help but feel yourself pulled deeper. You can almost hear the crunch of frost underfoot, smell the smoke of damp wood rising, taste the faint sharpness of the cold on your tongue. The world of the Middle Ages is no longer a distant story. It surrounds you, envelopes you, holds you in its grasp. Listen closely now, because this is how it begins. Not with storms, not with blizzards, but with a whisper of white upon the grass, a promise that the easy days are gone, and the testing days have come. You cannot turn away, because each detail draws you further in. The fear, the beauty, the discipline, the resilience. You are no longer outside the story. You are living it, step by step, frost by frost, breath by breath. And so the first frost settles, not only upon the land, but also within you. A mark, a memory, a threshold. Once crossed, there is no going back, only forward into the long night of winter. The frost has spoken, and now your thoughts turn backward, back to the months of warmth when every field was heavy with promise, when the air itself seemed golden with the hum of insects and the fragrance of ripening grain. In those days, when the sun was high and long, you knew that every step in the field, every bend of the back was not just labor, it was survival, stored against the cold nights yet to come. Imagine the harvest, not as a romantic painting, but as a season of relentless toil. The fields were seas of barley and wheat, each stalk bending beneath its burden, waiting for the scythe. You were there, sweating beneath the late summer sun, hands blistered from the sickle, muscles aching from swinging and bundling. Every cut of the blade sang the same song. This grain will feed us when the world turns silent. You see the sheaves now, stacked carefully in rows, drying beneath the sky before being hauled into barns. Dust clings to your skin, the air thick with the earthy perfume of chaff. You hear the creak of wooden carts, the grunt of oxen straining under their loads. And even as exhaustion gnaws at your bones, you press on, because the memory of winters past whispers in your ear. Without these harvests, there would be nothing. Inside the barn, the work continues. Grain is threshed upon hard wooden floors, the flails rising and falling in steady rhythm, striking with hollow thuds that echo through the rafters. Chaff and dust swirl in the air like a golden haze, clinging to your hair and filling your lungs. Children scurry to gather the kernels. Women sort and winnow, tossing grain into the air so that the breeze carries away the lighter husks. Nothing can be wasted. Not a kernel, not a seed. Beyond the grains, you remember the gardens. Rows of onions, leeks, cabbages, turnips, carrots, and parsnips, pulled from the earth before the soil hardened. Each one was a small miracle. A root that promised a meal when snow buried the land. You feel the soil still clinging to their skins, the damp coolness of earth beneath your fingernails as you gather them. Soon they will be placed in pits, cellars, and barrels, buried in straw and layers of sand to keep them from spoiling. Apples, pears, and plums were picked with careful hands, wrapped in straw and stored in cool, dark corners where they could last for weeks, sometimes months if fortune was kind. The scent of drying fruit still lingers in your memory. Sweet, sharp, almost intoxicating, filling lofts where slices were laid upon racks, to dry in the heat of the last summer sun or near the smoke of the hearth. These were not treats, they were lifelines, bits of sweetness against the long, gray months when the tongue grew weary of salted meat and hard bread. Herbs, too, had their place, bunches of sage, thyme, and rosemary, tied with twine, hung upside down from rafters until they became brittle, their leaves crumbling at the touch. They were not only flavor, but medicine, protection against illness that might strike when bodies were weakened by hunger and cold. Every stalk mattered, every leaf mattered. Step deeper into the village, and you find the cellars, dark, damp, cool places dug beneath homes or into the sides of hills. Barrels line the walls, filled with beer, ale, or cider, each cask sealed against the air. Jars of pickled vegetables gleam faintly in the low light, their brine preserving cucumbers, cabbages, and beets. Root vegetables rest in heaps cushioned by straw. It is a quiet place, almost reverent, for here lies the true treasure of the household. But it is not only food that is stored. Firewood is gathered in great stacks, each log split and dried, waiting for the spark that will turn it into warmth. Without wood, the hearth would grow cold, and without the hearth, there could be no survival. You picture yourself carrying armfuls of logs, stacking them carefully against the wall, checking each piece for dryness. The smell of fresh split wood clings to you, sharp and resinous, mingling with the sweat of labor. And there is grain for animals too. Sacks of oats for horses, hay for cattle, bundles of dried grass for sheep and goats. The animals, after all, must live through the winter as well, for they provide not only milk and eggs, but strength for plowing, wool for weaving, hides for warmth. Their survival is tied to yours, and so their share of the harvest must be guarded as carefully as your own. At night, when the day's labor ends, you sit by the hearth, sore and weary, but your mind drifts constantly to the stores you have gathered. You replay each moment of harvest in your memory, counting and recounting what lies hidden away. How many sacks of barley? How many jars of beans? Will the apples last? Will the hay hold out? This counting is more than habit. It is a shield against fear. Numbers give shape to hope. You feel the rhythm of the seasons pressing upon you. Summer is not a time of ease, but of frantic labor, because every kernel of grain, every root pulled from the earth, is a promise written against the hunger of winter. If you failed in summer, winter will not forgive you. And so, as the frost creeps deeper into the land, you find a strange comfort in knowing that your barns are filled, your cellars heavy with food, your stacks of wood high. Yet still, beneath the comfort lingers that old, unshakable doubt. Will it be enough? Because, deep in your bones, that no matter how much you have stored, winter is long and hunger is patient. The true test has only just begun. Step with me now into the earth itself. You descend wooden steps, rough and worn beneath your boots, into a space that feels different from the world above. The air is cool, damp, and heavy with the smell of soil and stone. This is the root cellar, humble, silent, yet as vital to survival as any fortress wall. Here, the sun never enters. Light comes only from a torch, a candle, or the faint spill from a doorway left ajar. The walls are earth, sometimes reinforced with stone, sometimes only packed clay, but always cool. The ground itself is the guardian, protecting what lies within from the merciless bite of frost. In this quiet space, You hear the faint drip of water seeping down the stones. You feel the chill that clings to your skin, the kind that makes you shiver even when the world above is mild. And you understand why these places are treasured. The earth is constant, while the wind rages and the snow falls, while firewood burns away and meals grow fewer. The earth holds steady, offering its chill as a gift to preserve life. Look closer at the rows before you. Barrels and baskets crowd the walls. Carrots and parsnips lie in heaps, their bright skins muted beneath straw. Potatoes rest in piles, each one firm, their eyes closed tight against the light. Turnips and cabbages sit snug, layered carefully to prevent rot. Onions and garlic hang in braids from the beams above, their papery skins rustling faintly when stirred by a draft. Everything is placed with thought. Roots that last longest are kept deepest, in the coldest, darkest corners. Those that spoil quickly are nearer the door, to be used first. Families know this order by heart. One mistake, one barrel left unchecked, can mean a spreading rot that devours food silently, unseen until it is too late. And so the cellar is visited often, its stores inspected with careful eyes and hands. You imagine yourself lifting the lid of a wooden barrel, peering into the brine where cabbages have been transformed into sour, pungent sauerkraut. The sharp smell rises, filling the air, but to your winter-weary senses it is not unpleasant. It is the smell of food that will last, food that will nourish when fresh leaves and fruits are only a memory. You touch another barrel and find salted beans, soaked and stored, waiting for the day when they will be softened in boiling water and eaten with bread. Even the air itself in this place feels precious. The dampness keeps roots from shriveling. The cool keeps them from spoiling. Sometimes straw or sand is packed around vegetables, a blanket of sorts, shielding them from mold and pests. Families speak of their cellars as though they are living things, allies in the battle against hunger, and yet these places are not without their dangers. Too much damp and rot can creep in unseen. Too little air, and the roots may wither. Rats and mice are constant intruders, gnawing at the bounty if vigilance lapses. And so, every visit to the cellar carries with it a small measure of tension. Each torchlight inspection is a moment of truth. Will the stores hold, or is something already lost? The cellar is not only for food. Bottles of ale or cider line the shelves, their surfaces cool and beaded with moisture. Sometimes cheeses are stored here too, wrapped in cloth, their rinds hardening slowly in the cool air. The mingled smells, sharp onions, sauerkraut, sweet apples, earthy roots, combine into an aroma that is not pleasant in the ordinary sense, but deeply reassuring. It is the smell of life preserved, of survival quietly waiting in the shadows. Now, step back up the stairs and into the memory of winter nights. Picture yourself lifting the cellar door in the dim light of evening, the snow piled outside, the wind shrieking around the corners of the house. You descend with a lantern, the flame flickering as you enter the underground quiet. You carry up a basket of potatoes, perhaps a head of cabbage, perhaps a handful of onions. These simple treasures will be turned into a pot of stew, steaming and rich, filling the house with warmth. You realize then that the cellar is more than storage. It is hope made physical, a reminder every day that careful hands and patient labor in the summer were not in vain. The memory of sweat beneath the sun, the aching back, the dirty nails, all of it is preserved here, in wooden barrels and stone-lined walls. Children in the household learn early to respect the cellar. They are told to walk softly, to touch little, to disturb nothing unless asked. For them, it is almost a sacred place, a chamber of winter magic, where food seems to sleep until it is needed. Some even whisper that the cellar holds the spirit of the earth itself, cradling its children until the snow has passed. Think of it. Without such places, survival would teeter on the edge of impossibility. The frost above would claim everything. Apples would shrivel, roots would freeze, meat would spoil, hunger would sharpen its teeth. But because of the root cellar, the balance tips back toward life. And so, as the first true weeks of winter settle over the land, the cellar becomes the beating heart of the household. It is visited daily, sometimes several times, each trip a reminder of both security and fragility. For every barrel emptied, every basket lightened, is a mark of passing time, a step deeper into winter's grasp. The question lingers still, whispered like a prayer with every descent into the earth. Will it last until spring? You feel it, don't you? The weight of those steps down into the earth, the hush of the underground chamber, the cold touch of stone and soil. The cellar is no longer a story. It is around you, enclosing you, pressing into your skin. And once you have descended into it, into this world of silent survival, it is impossible to leave behind. You carry it with you. The knowledge that in the Middle Ages, life itself depended on these shadowed earthen rooms. Step outside again into the bitter air, and now your senses are filled not with frost, but with the heavy, mouth-watering tang of smoke. It drifts lazily from a low timber building at the edge of the village, curling upward into the pale winter sky. This is no ordinary smoke. It is survival in the making, a slow and careful art that turns fragile meat into food that can outlast the cold. Imagine you are there, pulling open the rough wooden door of the smokehouse. Inside, the air is thick, almost choking at first, filled with the dark, sweet scent of burning wood. The light is dim, filtered only by cracks in the wall and the glow of embers on the floor. Hanging from beams above are slabs of pork, strings of sausages, whole sides of fish, each one darkening slowly as the smoke seeps deep into its flesh. The process begins long before the smokehouse. Picture the scene after slaughter. Men and women working together, their hands busy, their expressions solemn. Every part of the animal is destined for use. Meat to be salted and smoked, fat to be rendered into tallow, hides to be cured for clothing, bones for tools and broth. Waste is not an option when the months ahead will demand every resource. Salt is the first offender, coarse, rough crystals rubbed deep into cuts of pork or beef, packed thick into barrels where the brine forms, seeping into the flesh. The salt draws out the moisture, slowing the invisible hand of decay. Imagine lowering a hand into that coarse salt, feeling its sting against cracked winter skin, knowing that each grain is worth its weight in survival. Salt is precious, often traded across long distances, guarded carefully, measured sparingly. To own enough of it is to stand a little safer against the hunger to come. Now picture the fish. Nets heavy with herring or cod are hauled from rivers and coasts during the last days of open water. Laid out on racks, the fish are salted or smoked, their bodies stiffening as preservation takes hold. For many medieval people, fish is not merely food, but necessity, especially on days when the church forbids meat. Without preserved fish, both body and faith could falter in the cold months. Step closer to the fire inside the smokehouse. You see the wood carefully chosen. Not every tree will do. Oak, beech, apple, sometimes alder. Each kind gives its own flavor, its own character to the meat. The fire is not fierce, not the raging blaze of a hearth, but a low, steady smolder, tended patiently, The smoke must curl upward slowly, caressing the meat for hours, sometimes days, until the flesh takes on that deep, dark hue of preservation. Run your fingers along one of those slabs of smoked pork. The outer skin is tough, leathery, but inside remains firm meat, safe from the ruin of rot. These cuts will hang for months, sometimes longer, and each slice taken in midwinter will taste not only of the smoke, but of the labor, the planning, the discipline that made it possible. The smokehouse is more than a building. It is a vault of security. Every family that can afford to slaughter a pig or a goat before winter finds comfort in the scent of its curing meat. And yet, not all are so fortunate. The poor often must rely on scraps, on bones boiled again and again, until every bit of marrow is drawn out. For them, the smell of the smokehouse is both hope and torment. But step into the memory of a feast day, when smoked hams are brought forth, sausages boiled and hung on hooks, fish laid out on rough wooden tables. In these moments, the long labor of salting and smoking becomes joy, a brief reminder that food can be more than survival. It can be celebration, the crackle of fire, the laughter of neighbors, the taste of meat after weeks of thin broth. These moments knit communities together, giving them the strength to endure what lies ahead. You realize now how fragile this balance is. Too little salt, too thin a smoke, and rot can creep silently, spoiling whole stores. A forgotten cut, left untended, may turn foul and must be discarded. The loss of even a single barrel of salted meat can mean hunger tightening its grip on a family. And so each stage is watched with care, every fire tended, every barrel checked, every smell noted. Think of the hands that perform this work, cracked and reddened from brine, smoky from days spent in that dark building, patient and practiced. This is not a craft learned quickly, but handed down through generations. Each trick of the trade memorized, each failure remembered. Preservation is both science and ritual, a sacred pact with time itself. To hold back decay, to cheat the natural order long enough for spring to return. At night, when the village quiets and frost thickens on the windows, you dream of these stores. You see the slabs hanging in the smokehouse, the barrels sealed tight in the cool of the cellar. You imagine the meals they will become: hearty stews, thick slices with bread, broth simmering slowly over the hearth. Each dream is touched by the smell of smoke, that ancient promise of safety. And so, salt and smoke become silent companions in winter. You may not think of them each day, but you rely on them with every bite. They are invisible protectors, working tirelessly even as you sleep, keeping hunger just beyond the door. Close your eyes now, and let the scent of smoke curl around you. Let the memory of salted meat rest heavy in your thoughts. This is how people endured, not with abundance, but with careful art and ancient patience. And once you step inside the smokehouse of memory, with its hanging shadows and curling smoke, you may never leave it behind.